Okay, so today we're going to talk about Lesson 8-3. Lesson 8-3. For all of you, yes, I'm using a different pen. Show and tell. I guess that's something that you needed to see. Lesson 8-3, it's multiplication properties. Multiplication properties of exponents. Or how do we multiply exponents? Okay, so now that we see that, there's our title. Okay, so let's get started. So we are going to start with talking about multiplying exponents or powers with the same base. Okay, and let's just have a quick review that if we have 3 squared, we are saying that this 3 is the base, and that 2, of course, is the exponent. Okay, so we can see that 3 is the base, 2 is the exponent. So now what we're looking at is multiplying powers that have the same base. So if we have, let's move it up just a little bit, if we've got 3 cubed times 3 to the 4th, what our rule is going to be is that we are going to say, well, this is 3, and then we are going to add these exponents. 3 plus 4 equals 3 to the 7th power. Just very quickly, let's look at that. 3 cubed, that's 3 times 3 times 3. 3 to the 4th, that's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And then you are multiplying everything together. So if you were to look at it that way, you would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I would have 3 to the 7th power. Okay, so our rule then is that for every non-zero number, when we will have 3, we'll use it, let's go with some variables. So if we've got a squared times a cubed, that is going to equal a to the 2 plus 3 equals a to the 5th. We add the exponents. Okay? So, pretty much we've seen this before. This should just be a review for you. So, and if it's not, listen really carefully and watch it twice. Okay, so let's look at just a couple of examples. Let's say 2 to the 4th times 2 to the negative 2. Okay, first of all, I want to remind you, these have to have the same base. It doesn't work if the base is not the same. So this is going to equal 2 to the 4 plus, because we're still adding them, negative 2. Well, you've got to remember what you do with your integers. 4 plus a negative 2 is going to equal 2 squared. Okay? So that's the easiest way to look at this. We can do one more problem where we have a couple of them. We've got 7 to the negative, what have we got? Negative 3 times 7 squared times 7 to the 6th. So you are looking at 7 to the negative 3 plus 2 plus 6 equals 7. Okay, so negative 3 plus 2 equals negative 1 plus 6 is equal to 5. So your answer then is 7 to the power of 5. Okay, so let's say we've got some variable expressions or algebraic expressions. Let's get a fresh page here. Let's look at those. Okay, of course I'm struggling with getting my new page. There we go. Okay, so let's look at what we do with n squared times n cubed times 7n. Okay, the first thing that you have to remember is that every variable, if it does not have a coefficient that you can see, it has a coefficient of 1. Okay, so what we are looking at first is we're going to look at multiplying the coefficients. 7 times 1 times 1 is 7. Now we've got our base of n, and we've got 2 plus 3 plus 1. Let's not forget that this n right here has an exponent of 1 that they do not write, because proper form is that if it's just one of them, we don't put the exponent of 1, kind of like we don't put the coefficient of 1 in front of our variable either. So when we multiply this out, it becomes 7n to the 5 plus 1 is 6. So 7n to the power of 6. Let's look at another example. Let's look at 2y cubed times 7x squared times 2y to the 4th. 2y to the 4th. Okay, this is a great example because what we're looking at here is with all multiplication, we can, even though this x is a different base, we can still make it all into one term, okay? So we're going to start by, once again, multiplying our coefficients. First, we'll multiply our coefficients together. So we've got 2 times 7, which is 14, times 2, and we have 28. Okay, so now coefficients are done. Now we're going to go, and I always work alphabetically. I just think it's a good way to work since that's how we want to write it. Okay, x before y in the alphabet. So I'm just going to go to x first, and I see that I have no other x's here. So x squared just remains x squared. And now I'll put down my base of y, and I have y cubed and y to the 4th. So 3 plus 4 equals 7. So I end up with 28x squared y to the 7th. Okay, let's do one more problem like that just so that we have that little bit extra. We've got m squared times n to the negative 2 times 7m. Okay, now if it helps, put your exponents, even if you can't see them, put the 1 there if it helps so you don't forget. If it helps, add your 1 as your coefficient. So starting again with our coefficients, 7 times 1 times 1 is 7. M is first because alphabetically it comes first, and I've got 2 here and 1 here, so 2 plus 1 is 3. And n, well, okay, now my n has a negative exponent. We know that. It doesn't want to be up here with these, and since we're simplifying these completely, I'm going to go ahead and draw my line, and I'm bringing n down here, okay, because it's telling me don't belong up here with everybody else, so I'm going to bring it on down there. And that is how we simplify these, okay. So now let's look at this whole thing with scientific notation. So now we are going to be looking at, again, scientific notation. That was last night's video. Okay, in scientific notation, we are going to be taking 2.5. Oops, oh, mistake. Oh, put it in the blooper reel. Okay, 2.5 times 10 to the 8th power. Am I going to bloop all over the place? No, I'll be able to fit that in there. Okay, and there we go. And 6 times 10 cubed. Okay, So what we are going to do here is we are going to multiply our first integers here. So we've got 6 times 2.5. I'm just going to come out here. I'm going to do my math because I want to make sure that I don't have too many bloopers on this reel because it's not technically a blooper reel. So here's my decimal point here. So I've got 15 times, move that up a little bit, 15 times, now I know I'm going to multiply times 10. I'm going to add these exponents, 8 plus 3, and that will give me 11. Now, because I have written these words scientific notation, I know that the expectation is that my answer will be in scientific notation, which this one is not. Okay? This is a 15. 15 is not greater than or equal to 1 but less than 10. It's actually greater than 10. So I know that I've got to move this decimal point to this location to make it 1.5 times 10. And because I went 1 to the left, I need to add 1 here, and this becomes 10 to the 12th. So our answer here is 1.5 times 10 to the 12th. Okay, let's do another one. Let me turn the page because it'll just be better for me. Okay, so let's look at another problem. We've got 1.5 times 10, and we're going to go with the negative 2. And we are going to multiply that times 3 times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, so 3 times 1.5, well, I'll go ahead and do it just once again to make sure that I'm not making any errors. So 1 decimal point. So this gives me 4.5 times 10. Okay, so now I've got 10 to the negative 2 plus 4, which is going to give me 10 squared. And I check, and yes, my number is actually already in scientific notation, so that problem is done. Okay, let's do one last problem, and we've got 9 times 10 to the negative 6, and we're going to multiply that times 7 times 9 to, blooper reel. Okay, honestly, we're going to have to rewrite this whole thing. You all bring up the blooper reel and I start making bloopers. Okay, 7 times 10 to the negative 9. 7 times 10 to the negative 9. It is Friday afternoon, so, okay, have some mercy on me. Okay, 9 times 7 is, of course, as we all know, 63 times, now I've got 10, I've got negative 6 plus negative 9, so now I've got negative 15. Okay, I am not in scientific notation. I need to put it into scientific notation. Means I have to add 1 here. So my answer is going to be 6.3 times 10 to the negative 14 power. Okay, so hopefully that's all really understandable. We have, we'll have some word problems that we'll have to work on. Those are probably easier to do together. So just go ahead, make sure you watch this a couple of times if you have any questions on it, and we will review it next class. Okay, that's it. And if I can just find where I turn it off. There we go. Bye.